I can get Mr. Washington to his seat. There you go.
You'd think I was running for office.
I would think you were. I think it's an election year. All right, I would like to call this meeting of the Temecula City Council to order. And I would like to thank Xander Clement Smith for our lovely piano music. Thank you very much. And I believe we're going to have Pastor Adam Sullivan from Crossroads Church for our invocation, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Jeff Comachero with our flag salute. So if you'd like to come on down, thank you. So we're going to stand and have our invocation, and we'll remain standing for the flag salute. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just take a moment and follow what is instructed in 1 Timothy 2:2. We pray for our leaders and those in authority. We pray that you give them wisdom. We pray that you give them understanding for the issues that face us today. We pray so that we may continue to live quiet and peaceful lives. And we pray all these things through your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Please remain standing, and let's honor all of our brave men and women all around the world as we just celebrated the 4th of July. Make sure we remember them because they're the reason that we do what we do here. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Comachero.
Here.
Councilmember Nagar.
Good evening.
Councilmember Roberts. Here. Councilmember Washington.
I'm here.
And Mayor Edwards.
Here. All right, we have some certificates that we would like to present, and these are the winners for the 2014 Ralph Love Plein Air Contest. And is Melody here? Is Melody? Hi, Mel, you want to come up? You want to bring your winners with you? Come on up. So we want to be able to show your artwork. And we're going to have these up on the screen, I think, are we not?
Yes, we are.
All right. So let's see what order we have these in right now.
This would be Lisa Foos. She took second place.
All right, so I'm going to turn
Here
my
with
screen
us
on so I can
tonight.
see. Oh, that is lovely.
There were 15 plein air artists, the most we've had, and this is our 7th year, so we're really proud of that.
Let me get these in the right order. Okay, so there's Lisa, right? And so you want to do these, let me come down there with you. How about that?
That sounds good. And then we have the painting, the Best of Show, which, as you know, 7 years ago we set up as a purchase award, and it will now remain at City Hall. And we also have the daughters of that artist, because that particular artist is from Silver City, New Mexico.
We go. Oh, that's awesome. So it's the Old Town Bridge, looking over the Old Town Bridge. So there's this one. And then here is Lisa. And so who's that one? The one
This is Lisa's.
Okay,
That's-
so here's Lisa's. All right, and so who's Lisa? Oh, you're Lisa. Congratulations. You want to tell us a little bit about this painting?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm very impressed with the new bridge under the morning light, the shade and the light part, and the City Hall as the background. I think it's a very beautiful composition.
It looks beautiful. So you're looking to the east across the Old Town Bridge, the Main Street Bridge up towards City Hall. So this is for you. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Beautiful.
much.
All right. So which one you want to do next?
The second one is our first place winner, Greg Stogner, and I believe he won last year, and he got second place this year. But he's not with us, he's on vacation.
Oh, my goodness. It almost looks like a photograph of the Palomar Hotel. So this one is for Greg for first place. Okay, so he's on vacation. And
And our best of show goes to Louise Sackett, and she's back at home in New Mexico, so her daughters, Holly Gomez and Jody Brown, are here to receive her certificate, and they'd like to say a few things.
So she's at home. Does somebody want to speak for Mom?
Okay, she prepared a statement for me. A brief one, it's very brief, so. Got it. Okay, so she says, for the last decade, the plein air movement has gained momentum in the United States and abroad, opening the beauties of different regions to public attention. It is common for an artist to drive distances to try to gain a unique perspective on vistas that, for local inhabitants, due to everyday familiarity, hide their charms. The representatives of the Temecula Ralph Love Plein Air competition made me feel welcome, were very friendly, and were great ambassadors for Temecula. The experience was totally positive for me and one that I will let other artists know about. I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to be hanging my work in your city hall. I cannot think of a place I would have liked better for this painting to hang. I thank you and feel honored to accept this award.
Oh, that's great. And so, on behalf of the residents of Temecula and the City Council, we thank you and congratulate your mom.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. And so this is it, and that is it. And so do we get to keep it forever?
I believe so, yes.
Excellent. And it is beautiful. So where is this? It's Butterfield Square. No, it's not Butterfield
6th
Square.
Street. It's 6th in front.
Oh, 6th in front. I know where it is.
It's
So,
the European
yes,
name of the shop.
European Living.
yes, European Living. So that's European Living right there. Okay. It is beautiful. Well, would you thank her for us?
Absolutely.
On behalf of the residents of Temecula, and we will find a prominent place in City Hall to hang this, and we will enjoy it. So I will pass this around as soon as I get back. And thank you, Mel. You did a great job again this year.
Thank you.
So let's give them all a big round of applause one more time. Thank you. It's beautiful. All right. Okay. Now we have special guests this evening. We're going to have an update by Eastern Municipal Water District, and I believe the presentation is going to be this evening by Eric Jorgensen. Is that correct? And he's going to come up and introduce Steve Freeman. Yes? No? No? Okay, well then tell me.
Thank you, Mayor Edwards, members of the council. I am not Eric Jorgensen. I am, in fact, Paul Jones. I'm the general manager of Eastern Municipal Water District. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to provide a presentation on the Old Town Sewer System project improvements that we're going to be conducting. And also, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Eastern for the opportunity to serve the city of Temecula. Before I get started on my comments, I'd like to introduce a couple people. We have a number of staff members here tonight, but I'd also like to recognize two of our board members. First, President Phil Pauley is here, and also the treasurer of our board of directors, Joseph Kubler. The Old Town Sewer expansion project's really necessary because of the city's success in revitalizing the downtown area. We have a somewhat aged sewer system that goes down Front Street that's reached its capacity. And in that case, we need to provide parallel sewer capacity to be able to serve the future development of the Old Town area. So I think it's really attributable to the success of the area why we're here tonight. As we developed this project, we really had four key goals in mind. I think first, we wanted to make sure that the construction of the project was done with the least possible impact to the community and also the businesses in the area. That's been a very important priority for us. I think our second goal was to come up with a construction schedule and construction techniques that will allow for the completion of the project in a very timely manner. We did not want this project to drag on any longer than it needed to and continue with any disruption. But at the same time, we also needed to coordinate very carefully with the city to suspend construction activities during certain community and tourist events that you hold in the downtown area, and we've coordinated with staff to ensure that's the case. I think third, our objective was to absolutely minimize the impact to traffic circulation. As you'll see, the construction techniques that we're using are absolutely focused on that objective. We do not have a traditional open cut to put the sewer in. We're instead using a micro-tunneling system that will have the minimum disruption on traffic. And I think finally that the project's really done as cost effectively and efficiently as possible. This has to be paid for by our customers in the future and customers of and businesses in the city of Temecula, so we want to make sure it's done very cost effectively. We've had great success in developing the project to meet these goals. I want to express our appreciation for the time and effort that the city staff has put into it. Mr. Adams and Mr. Butler and their staff have met with us on numerous occasions. It's been very helpful. We've also met with the community and the businesses in the community and received a lot of input that's all been incorporated into the project. So it's been, from that standpoint, very successful to bring it this point. So with that, I think we'll go ahead with the presentation. I'd like to introduce Mr. Steve Friedman from HDR Consulting. He will give the presentation. Our staff is here, so if there's questions that you have for Steve or our staff, that we'll be happy to answer them. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to give the presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Paul. There we are. Okay, so as Paul mentioned, we're here to talk about the Old Town Sewer Improvement Project, and he did a really good job of introducing the project and some of our goals. Here's the overview of what I want to talk to you about today. I'll give another little overview with a few extra details, discuss some of the construction activities, go into some of the details on the shaft and tunneling, discuss the schedule, the traffic control concepts that we developed along with your staff, what our next steps are, who you can contact if you have questions after today, and answer any questions you may have. So as Paul mentioned, the reason for this project is there's been a change to the city's plan. What's shown in blue there is where densities increased over what the sewer lines were initially constructed for. What's shown there are the green lines are sewer lines that the city modeled and determined were still okay. They had sufficient capacity. The red ones that are shown there will not have sufficient capacity, so we need to increase the capacity along those alignments. What this project's going to be able to do, increase the capacity, it'll support the businesses and growth within the city. It will reduce potential odor problems. And finally, it'll be funded, as Paul mentioned, by conditional use permits and future growth. And Paul also mentioned that the district went through a lot of steps working with city staff in order to come up with a project that's going to minimize impacts to downtown. So we came up with a trenchless methodology. So instead of an open cut all the way down Front Street, there's just going to be a few areas where there'll actually be excavations within or along the side streets. There'll be no service interruption to water or sewer as a result of the project. Again, we're going to minimize the vehicle and pedestrian impacts. And then Main Street became a focus during the project, especially recently as the bridge was completed. And then we're also very cognizant of a lot of the events that you hold downtown. So the contractor is going to have to move completely off-site during the events that are listed up there, the 4th of July, Santa's Light Parade and Rod Run. And even on Main Street, there are only a few certain months that construction will be allowed. So this is what the project looks like. It will go from Moreno there on the left all the way down to First Street there on the right. And what's shown, the yellow and red dots are the only places where there'll actually be excavations. Those are schematically shown. They're not actually that large, but they're 10 to 12 foot diameter shafts at each of the intersections, and they're not in the middle of Front Street. They're kind of more on the side streets. And the different colors going in between them are where the tunneling machine will be launching, and the different colors indicate a different phase of each project, or a different phase of construction, so you won't be working along the entire thing at once. And the green dots, I haven't mentioned those yet. That's where there'll be interconnections to the existing sewer system. And there won't actually be any excavation at those locations, but there will be some night work, very limited. The rest of the project will be done during the day, Monday through Friday. I believe 7 to 5 is the time that we determined with your staff. Oh, and the arrows up there indicate the direction that tunneling would occur. So what will happen here is that all the shafts will be constructed consecutively, starting at the first street, the right-hand side, and constructed as you work your way upstream towards Moreno. And then as they get completed, they'll be plated over, and the surface will be put back temporarily, so it'll look as close as possible to what was there before. And some of those shafts will remain covered for a few months until the tunneling efforts can reach its way down that way. And then there'll only be 3 intersections being worked on at any one time. So you can see that the green lines up there at Moreno and, I'm sorry, not at Moreno, down at First Street. I wonder if this works. Yeah. So the tunneling machine will be launched out of this red shaft here, and they'll drive in one direction, and then they'll drive in the other direction. So these 3 shafts are the only ones being worked on at a time, while the other ones are plated over. Once those are done, the machine will be picked up and moved to the next shaft. So I just want to go over what some of the main construction activities are going to be on the project. Utility relocations will happen first. There's no clean area for these shafts to be installed, so some utilities have to be moved out of the way ahead of time. Some will be done by the utility companies themselves. Others the contractor will do on their own, the ones that they find as they're ready to construct those shafts. There'll also be monitoring sensors. It's really just more like a potholing effort. Some of that work's already been, the potholing's already been done. It'll be very similar type work. The purpose of that is to make sure that any below ground facilities or even above ones aren't impacted during the tunneling, because you can't actually see what's going on. Of course, there'll be traffic and pedestrian control. And the ones that have bolded up here, I'm going to go into some more detail during this presentation. There'll be the construction of the shafts themselves. There'll be temporary repairs to the sidewalk as well as the street. There will be soil and groundwater that needs to be removed from each shaft location. The tunneling itself, then the manholes will be constructed in the shafts once that tunneling machine has exited. And then there'll be a final paving and sidewalk repair. So I'm going to talk about the shafts now. This is a schedule of what each shaft construction will take. It's about 4 weeks per shaft, ranging from setup all the way through the final plating. And of course, this doesn't include the relocation of those utilities. And these are some pictures of similar shafts that are constructed on other projects. You can see on the left-hand side is the auger that might be used. There's 10 and 12-foot diameter shafts, so they'll have different sized augers for those. And then once that shaft is drilled, that casing, that corrugated metal pipe you see on the right-hand side will be brought in on that day and lowered in, so that's not going to be sitting around on site. So here's some details on the launching shaft. Pictures there are, again, similar to what you'll see. The tunneling machine is down below grade, so you won't see it. And at each launching shaft location, those were the red dots on the previous map, is where this will occur. So they're consecutive operations. It'll last somewhere between 6 and 9 weeks, depending on the location. And what will happen there is they'll install the tunneling machine. They'll drive the pipe in one direction, and if they need to drive in the other direction, they'll turn the machine around and then drive in that direction. And in some cases, there's also an interconnection to the existing sewer, so they'll have to take that machine and lift it up to the right elevation to make that drive to the existing manholes. Then once that's done, they'll be able to come in and install a manhole, backfill, put temporary paving down. And we expect the contractor will do temporary paving until the whole job's done and then come through and do final paving for the entire project. So the receiving shafts are a little simpler. The events that happen at those shafts are not consecutive. The contractor needs to be around the shaft at the time the tunneling machine is approaching it. So at first, there'll be these smaller tubes that come through, and then that'll get followed up by the actual carrier pipe. And so those activities range 3 days for the pilot tubes, 1 to 2 weeks for the pipe connections, and the manhole construction's about 2 weeks. And those will happen at various times. And this is a little bit about what the tunneling actually looks like. So they drive a small diameter pipe first, and that's guided by laser. And then that's followed up by a cutting machine with the pipe and auger inside. You can see some pictures down below of what that looks like. The main point to get out of this is you won't see anything on the surface except for at those 2 shaft locations. There's about 350 to 400 feet between each shaft, so you won't see anything in between those during construction. And this is the overall project schedule. We're just wrapping up final design now. We expect to be done this week. So then we'll enter the bid phase and award. And so that award will likely happen in September of this year. Notice to proceed will be given at that same time. And then we expect construction to happen. It's about a 14-month duration. It'll start in October of this year and end by December of next year. And these are the traffic control concepts that we developed along with your staff and also presented at the Traffic Commission about 2 weeks ago. And I don't want to go into all the details here, but I will show you what some of the intersections look like, just as an example. What we're showing here is 3rd Street and Main Street. In some instances, like on 3rd Street, we're able to have our laydown area in such a way that you can maintain two-way traffic on the side street. Main Street, we're not able to do that. So we're only able to have one way of traffic when construction is going on at that location. And so in that instance, we've developed a detour plan. And you can see that here, that you'll still be able to enter the street from either direction on Front Street. And then pedestrians will be able to maintain flow around the construction site. We don't want them going right across where the shaft is being constructed for their own safety. And then this is kind of what the detour plan looks like. There is a way to get back onto Front Street, even though there's only one way onto that location at Main Street. And again, that's Main Street's a short period of time where that will happen. The rest of the time it'll be plated over and you'll have two-way traffic. Okay, so our next steps, we're about to advertise, and then we'll award once that's done. Once the contractor's on board, the district's going to get with the contractor and continue to have public outreach meetings. It's important that the contractor comes along because his idea of what he's going to do is different than what ours is. He'll have his own ideas, but he still needs to meet all the requirements that we've worked out with you. The contractor is going to have to develop his own traffic control plans. We didn't want to develop actual plans for him because we find out that they always want to change things. So they'll work with your staff and nail down what those actual plans look like and get an encroachment permit from you. They'll start construction, and then throughout construction, the district will continue to lead public outreach meetings. And speaking of public outreach, this is your contact. Should you or any of your residents have questions, Roxanne, here she is, will be your contact, and there's her information. And I'll take any questions you might have.
Mr. Comachero.
Yeah, thanks. That equipment that does that work is just amazing, and it's really neat. But anyway, you mentioned there will be some night work, particularly at the interconnect points. How do we define night work? What are the hours? And what's the noise intrusion? We do have some residents down there, and obviously we're concerned about that. So how much is that going to impact their ability to sleep at night?
Right. The reason we went to daytime construction, and we considered doing nighttime for the entire project, and the ambient noise levels are lower at night. So you're going to notice any noise more at nighttime. So that's why we went to daytime. Regardless of that, we did a noise study, and it shows that the noise we anticipate from this construction is still going to be below your noise ordinance.
Oh, great. But what are the hours of night work, though?
Do you recall the night work hours? 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. is what I hear?
It's all night long.
Sunday through Thursday.
Okay. But it will be within the noise tolerances that we've set by ordinance.
Yes, and those interconnections, again, there's no earthwork being done, it's just the tunneling machine driving. So there's not a whole lot of noise coming from that, and it's a very short period.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one. I know you'll be notifying the Old Town merchants, but have you actually sat down with any of them or the Merchants Association and met with them?
I can say yes. Roxanne can provide details if you'd like.
Hi, Roxanne.
Hi there, good evening. We, very early in design, we put together a very comprehensive outreach campaign and presented that to some of your staff members and shared what we've done. We've provided presentations to the Old Town Temecula Association. We've met with the Old Town Business Association, and we've also done outreach meetings to the Main Street merchants, as well as I've come out several times and visited with the merchants all the way from Moreno to First.
You might want to do an outreach to the residents that live along Pujol Street.
Yes, so
too.
we work closely with Rancho California, so I've identified the residents in that area. We've created a mailing list for them, so we'll be notifying them as well. And then towards the end of the summer, we'll also be setting up a booth at the farmers market and also having additional outreach meetings.
Okay, that's great. I thought the visuals were really good, the diagrams, because it gave a really great explanation of, scientific explanation for how everything's are done. Are you going to have, you'll have a notice, a board with the notice. Are you going to have anything down there, like they have the La Brea tar pits that kind of give diagrams of how the tar pits work? I think it'd be great if you could provide those same diagrams that show how you're doing this.
So at some of the outreach meetings that we've had, we have shared some of the diagrams, and we'll continue to do that. I can tell you that one of the merchants that I met with at the Granny's Cottage, I think it's called, as I was explaining the technology to her, she screams out to her other coworkers, wait, I saw this on television. This is the best technology we can have down here. And I said, I need you to be our spokesperson. I need you to
Right.
talk to the rest of the merchants, because
Right.
she was very excited about it. And I think, just to reiterate, we went with this technology because it does have less impact to the merchants. And it's very, very important for us that they maintain their businesses and pedestrian traffic.
Right, and I think the more you can reassure them and be available to them, the better. And I know you
Absolutely.
will.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anyone? Nope. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, we're going to move on to public comments. Do we have request to speak forms?
We have 2 under public comment and 1 under consent.
Okay, so if anyone had requests to speak forms, they need to be turned in now. A total of 30 minutes is provided so members of the public may address the city council on items that appear within the consent calendar or a matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If the speaker chooses not to address the city council on an item listed on the consent calendar or a matter not listed on the agenda, a request to speak form must be filled out and filed with the city clerk prior to the city council addressing public comments and the consent calendar. Once the speaker is called to speak, please come forward and state your name for the record. For all public hearing or council business items on the agenda, a request to speak form must be filed with the city clerk prior to the city council addressing that item. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. All right, could we have the first speaker, please?
Betty Manrique, to be followed by Wayne Hall.
Good evening.
Good evening, council members and residents. My name is Betty Manrique. I'm with Pro Solar, and I'm here to invite all of you and the residents. On July 15th, we are holding a solar seminar at the Murrieta Library, and we're inviting everyone to come because it's a wonderful way to save money in our community and use the sun to work for you. July 15th, 6 p.m., Murrieta Library.
Solar Seminar, July 15th, Murrieta Library.
Yes.
Got it.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. And Wayne Hall. No? Change your mind? Okay. All right, Wayne. All right, thank you. Then we're going to move on to city council reports. And nobody's in the queue? Oh, Mr. Washington, you never fail to,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
let's
just
go.
want to real briefly thank
I thought I was going to be disappointed.
staff for a wonderful, wonderful 4th of July. Family, everyone enjoyed everything that was to be had in the community. Great parade, great activities at the sports park. great fireworks, and to our police and fire, great job keeping everybody safe throughout the day. Kudos.
Here, here.
It was another outstanding 4th of July. I did take note of all the happy faces that were included in the fireworks display this year. Yeah, there was a little problem with the orientation of the happy faces, so, you might want to put in an order next year. They need to rotate a little bit differently, but I understand that's all a matter of perspective. So thank you very much. It was another outstanding presentation. All right, so we're going to move on to the consent calendar. And did we have consent calendar requests?
We have one speaker under item 6, and that's Paul Jacobs.
Okay, one. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and take the public comments at the beginning of the consent calendar. Okay. So we've got items 1 through 7. So Mr. Jacobs, let me go ahead and read these. Let me get over to them. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There'll be no discussion of the items unless members of the City Council request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Number 1, standard ordinance and resolution adoption procedure. Number 2, action minutes. Number 3, listed demands. Number 4, city treasurer's report as of May 31st, 2014. Number 5, First Amendment to Fire EMS Protection Agreement for fiscal year 2014-15. Number 6, acceptance of improvements and notice of completion for pavement rehabilitation program, Rancho Vista Road, Margarita Road to Paseo Goleta, PW 10-15. Number 7, second reading of ordinance number 14-04. Okay. So, Mr. Jacobs, you want to come up and give your public comments before we call for the question?
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Edwards, council members, city staff, and fellow citizens. My name is Paul Jacobs, a former traffic safety commissioner with a continuing passion for public safety. My wife and I moved here in 1995, and I am not running for city council. Respectfully, I believe a portion of the pavement rehabilitation project on Rancho Vista Road has created an unintended traffic safety hazard just east of Temecula Valley High School. This display shows the before and after of Rancho Vista at Via El Greco. Before this project, motorists and bicyclists had room to use the shoulder as an escape route, and it was a safer road condition. Unfortunately, this project included the addition of a curb, and now motorists and bicyclists are trapped and have no access to use the shoulder as an escape route. Numerous vehicles have jumped the curb or skidded to a stop since it was installed. This next display shows Rancho Vista at Paseo Goleta, the next street up, where an asphalt curb was not added. You will notice an absence of skid marks on the road, and the lower photo shows tread marks from vehicles utilizing the dirt shoulder. This photo shows that numerous vehicles have had unwanted encounters with this new curb. It seems evident that this curb is a hazard to motorists and bicyclists. More planning should have gone into this $1.4 million road rehabilitation project. The city had a perfect opportunity to enhance the safety of motorists, bicyclists, pedestrians, and the disabled community with a paved shoulder. The city failed to consider those essential public needs. The addition of this curb has proven to be a detriment to public safety. Respectfully, I'd like the city to condemn and rectify the hazardous condition that has been created through no fault of the contractor. I'd like to know the rationale for adding a curb and why the addition of a paved shoulder was not considered. Respectfully, I'd like an answer from staff and a commitment from this council that the existing hazardous condition will be rectified in the interest of public safety by at least removing the curbing and ideally adding a paved shoulder. Thank you for addressing these concerns and hopefully directing some action to correct this faulty application of asphalt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Mayor Pro Tem Comachero.
To our Public Works Director, I have to admit, in looking at the photo, that I'm a little puzzled by the curb as well. I'd like to know what the purpose was of that in design.
I'm afraid I don't have the answer to that question at this time. I'll be researching that and get directly back to you, and also speak to Mr. Jacobs regarding why the curb was placed and the rationale for it. As for the paved shoulder, generally paved shoulders aren't included on pavement rehab projects. We rehabilitate the existing pavement. Extending the pavement requires a different type of environmental clearance and is also cost prohibitive. But I will research why the curb was installed, especially in that one location, not throughout the project. If there's a rationale for it, I'd like to know it as well.
Thank you, Tim.
That predated your employment, probably.
I believe the construction was during my appointment.
So, but, yeah.
I will take responsibility for that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, so that concludes public comments, so now we can take the items on the consent calendar.
Move the balance of consent.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Cast your votes, please.
Did we read the consent? Sure I don't.
Mm-hmm. And that is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. So I will recess the city council meeting to scheduled meetings of the Community Service District, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the Temecula Housing Authority, and the Temecula Public Financing Authority.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to call this meeting of the Temecula Community Services District to order. Madam Clerk, we are all here this evening. Do we have any public comment under this portion?
No, sir, we do not.
Thank you. We do have, let's see, 2 items under consent. Item 8, the action minutes of June 24th, 2014, and item 9, First Amendment to the Harveston Center lease agreement.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That motion does carry unanimously. Mr. Hawkins, purveyor of that wonderful parade and all the other festivities for 4th of July, what do you have to say?
Just a brief comment. First of all, thank you, Council, for your support. But in addition to the folks that we recognize, I also wanted to thank not only the police department, but Public Works and our IT folks for all their support and assistance too, in addition to our great community services team. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, any further?
Nothing. Mr. Hawkins said it well. I just wanted to commend all the staff. It took quite an effort to pull off everything, and I just appreciate the effort by all departments to make it great.
Thank you. And I see Don sitting out there. You didn't think you were going to go unnoticed, did you? How many years have you been putting on the parade now?
That was my 11th.
11 years, and every year has been flawless. So to you and your staff, job well done.
Good job.
Do we have any additional director reports? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn to the next meeting of July 22nd.
So moved. Second.
That's okay. With that, any objection?
Nope.
Yep.
Let the
No.
record reflect that the motion carries 4-1. Mr. Nagar abstaining. Mr. Nagar objecting.
Yep.
All right. Moving on past the successor agency, Temecula Housing Authority et al., we are going to reconvene the Temecula City Council. Moving on to City Council business, item number 10, the 2015 Temecula Rod Run Planning and Implementation. And do we have a brief staff report, please?
Yes, we do.
Hi, Luke.
Oh, it's a different item.
Is the
Kevin, Luke, Kevin, Luke,
Yeah.
Kevin, Luke.
briefer in chief?
Yeah. Item 10 seeks approval for the planning and implementation of the 2015 Temecula Rod Run to be handled by staff within the Community Services Department. I think we have a background slide too. Briefly, back on July 23rd, 2013, at the request of the Economic Development Subcommittee members Roberts and Washington, the City Council approved the planning and implementation of the 2014 Temecula Rod Run to be managed by city staff within the Community Services Department. Now, after a 6 to 7 month planning process that included members from the Drifters Car Club and the Old Town Temecula Association, the 2014 Rod Run was held this past March, and the results were outstanding. The Temecula Rod Run featured over 750 cars from 6 states, including Alaska, and even one international entry from Canada. The 2-day event also included 40 vendors, 12 sponsor booths, a fun zone for families, and over 60,000 spectators in attendance. The event generated close to $17,000 in net proceeds with strict internal controls and operational transparency to be distributed through the Community Services Grant Funding process. Now, based upon post-event evaluations and the overall event experience, staff is poised to enhance the 2015 Temecula Rod Run as the signature Rod Run in the Temecula Valley. As such, we are seeking council direction and concurrence that Community Services will be moving forward with the planning and implementation of the event. I'm available to answer any questions. I know Don is as well.
Any questions? No? None? Mr. Roberts.
Unfortunately, my wife was very sick the last couple of weeks, and I missed out on the Temecula Rod Run planning and implementation meeting. But I have to tell you, from last year, the first year that Dawn and her group put it together, I was very pleased. The way it was handled, I think it was one of our best. And certainly if we would have had that subcommittee meeting, that's hard for me to say, I would have voted at that time, but I do think that it was well handled.
Can I answer his question?
That's all.
I just wanted to address Mr. Roberts' comment in regard to that last meeting. His wife was ill. We had a subcommittee meeting that was noticed, and so the meeting could not proceed with just one member there. But unlike past events where the event organizers were able to take reservations for the following year's event, our staff was not able to do that until they got council approval. And so they've already lost a couple of months. And so that was why I asked them to go ahead and put it on the agenda, since it was going to end up here anyway. So. And
Yes.
Hopefully Jean's better now. Yes.
Much better.
Good.
Good. All right. Any other questions? No? Well,
Approval.
okay, I've got a motion and
Second.
a second. All in favor? Oh, you're going to go ahead and cast your...
I have
Aye.
one item that I wanted to discuss before we vote.
All right, go ahead.
It was brought to my attention during staff's report that we had a sponsor who had expressed to them an unwillingness to move forward in the future with sponsoring the event if all of his sponsorship money did not go to the event. I expressed to staff that I would bring it up at the council meeting, and we had a reporter there, so Aaron reported on my comments at that meeting. But it seemed to me, and I don't know what the amount was, and maybe Don can answer that question, but it seemed to me, in light of our corporate sponsorship agreement, which sends half to the nonprofit funding that happens in the community service funding avenue, rather than lose that entire sponsorship, that sponsorship funding could go to defray some of the city's costs, because when we factor in the entire expense that the city goes to put the event on, it's actually deeply in the red. The net proceeds of almost $17,000 does not take into consideration the $63,000, pardon me, that the city expends for police and fire and public works and other services. So I guess what I would be asking is perhaps a component of the motion and the vote that gives staff the authority to recruit that sponsorship and direct it entirely to the event itself. But if the council doesn't want to support that, then we'll move forward with the rest of the recommendation.
I'm going to second that motion for discussion.
We have a motion on the floor.
We already have a motion and a second on the floor.
So is that an alternate motion, Mr. Washington?
Sure.
And I'll second the alternate motion.
All right, for discussion, comments, Mr. Comachero?
I'm not going to be supporting that motion. I understand that it costs us money to put on the Rod Run. I suppose my response is if we can't afford to put it on, we shouldn't do it. But the whole purpose when we passed the sponsorship program was to ensure, no matter what, that we did not take sponsorship money away from the nonprofits. And I think that's critical to the success of our nonprofits in this community. And that was a pledge that we made to them by the vote, at least I did, and I'm not going to turn my back on that. I think you open the door with one, and you open the door with the next one, and then the next one, and before you know it, you've taken the whole policy and just shredded it. So I don't think that's a good idea. I do think we should continue to put on the Rod Run. I think it was a great event. And whatever, if we deem the cost to be prohibitive at some point, then we should consider it on a cost basis whether or not we do it. But I don't think we should take money out of the nonprofits' pockets to do it.
Mr. Nagar.
I think we need to start from a basic premise, Mr. Comachero. Number one, I don't think anybody wants to take money from nonprofits. I think we all have to agree with that. We had that long discussion, and I think that we can all agree that everybody on this council values nonprofits and wants to see that they can raise as much money as possible. But when we came, and so in that we agree. When we came up with the corporate sponsorship program, we had a long discussion. Mr. Washington had to make a flight, so he left, and I think it got to be almost close to midnight, and we kept going back and forth on this issue, and staff had worked, I think, 1.5 years on the corporate sponsorship program. And so rather than kill it altogether, I believe I capitulated. I don't know, Mr. Roberts, were you here at the time, or was it just the three of us? I don't recall. And we just said, you know what, 50% had to go to the community service fund. But we were concerned, and what we were concerned about then has now come to fruition now. A corporate sponsor, notwithstanding whether or not they're new, who says, I want to sponsor the Rod Run, and I don't want to sponsor anything else, now makes a decision to not sponsor, and we don't come out good in that scenario. We can say, very good, we now lost 100% at the attempt to try to divert 50%. And I can't see how that's good for the city. It needs to be addressed because it killed the corporate sponsorship program. It killed it. There's nowhere we can go now to get more new corporate sponsors without telling them that if you sponsor concerts in the Civic Center, 50% of what you give us can't go to what you want to sponsor. That's what we have to tell them. And they go, well, I'll do it another way. So it doesn't work the way it's set up now, and it has come to fruition in this scenario.
Yeah.
If I can just, I don't want to say rebut that. I understand what you're saying, and it's valid. But when we had that discussion on the dais that night, there was grave concern about taking money out of the pockets of nonprofits. And so the way the discussion went is that we all said we have no problem with going outside the city to get corporate sponsorships, whether it be Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, or Abbott, Abbott is in town, but, and that would be the source of the corporate funding. If that didn't happen, or didn't happen exclusively, and there were opportunities, if somebody, I remember the question got asked, what if somebody locally comes forward and says, I want to sponsor? Well, then we want to make sure that they don't sponsor at the expense of those nonprofits who live on those sponsorship dollars. And there are only so many local sponsors to go around. And if we take them and have them sponsor the Rod Run, what aren't they sponsoring? What other event are they not sponsoring?
But we're not
Is
in
it the Race
control.
for the Cure? Is it the Balloon and Wine Festival? Is it a host of other events? And so that was the reason for the protection. And you know, if there's a way to tweak the policy, if we want to say that in those cases where a sponsor comes forward and says, I don't want my money going to an unknown nonprofit because it's going into community services, I'm certainly willing to relook at the program and say, well, maybe we should let that sponsor dictate where their own dollars go to what nonprofit. I think that's a reasonable conversation. But to just take it out of the pot is finite for nonprofit money. And these are the people that built this community and the people that provide the service. I don't want to get on a soapbox because I know you agree. I think it's just an awful precedent to set.
But if I may, just real quickly, and I know Councilmember Washington has something to say, there's a false premise in what you say. There's two, actually. Number one is we don't have control by virtue of the fact that somebody says, we're not going to give you the money. So there. And so we lose 100%. So the idea that somehow we had control to keep money for nonprofits is not correct. It's gone. It's going away, number one. The other...
It'll go somewhere else in the community.
You don't know that.
And then over 25 years, that's been the case.
Well, you absolutely don't know that. That's an assumption. Then the second assumption, which I think is also it's just a false premise, is that by it going to, let's say in this case, the Rod Run, that it's coming from somewhere else, that somebody else is not going to be funded because there's no proof of that. It's all conjecture.
I don't think we have sponsorships that have millions and millions of dollars in their bank account that they're going to fund every nonprofit in town. It's like squeezing a balloon. I mean, it's just common sense that that's what's going to happen.
Okay, but I'll say this one more time, because I think my point is proved. This person says, I want to sponsor the Rod Run. And if I can't sponsor the Rod Run, I'm not going to give you the money. No nonprofit is getting anything. So a couple of things that we know is he's not giving the money he was going to use for the Rod Run somewhere else to another nonprofit. So that premise is kind of gone, to assume that it would have went somewhere. And number two is we just lose. So
Clearly, we're going to disagree, and that's okay.
Okay, I've made my argument, but and that's it.
Jeff, I do want to correct one thing you said. On several occasions that evening, I did clearly state that we were not going to agree on this. So I don't want, and I didn't vote for that policy. I had to leave. I had an early flight, and making my living flying airplanes, people like their pilots to be awake.
Can't imagine.
Yeah. Personally, I did not support where that vote ended up. But as a more pragmatic matter, and I don't know who the sponsor was, I didn't get that information from staff, and I'm not certain that the sponsor wants that divulged. But in any case, in my mind, I imagined that was someone who was drawn to that particular event because of what it was about. Maybe it was a car dealership who wants to sponsor a Rod Run and wants all of their sponsorship money to go. I don't know that this is a slippery slope. I don't know that accommodating that one sponsor means that the entire corporate sponsorship program goes down the drain. I would like to at least perhaps have the leeway in this one example to see if this works so that we can retain funding for one of our signature events in town and help to defray some of the expense. Because back when we were passing our budget, we talked about that evening with corporate sponsorship. We talked about it again during the budget cycle. There are finite amounts of dollars. We are not in a growth phase in this city's history anymore. We are in a maintenance phase. And if we want to continue to provide high-quality events and a high-quality experience for people that live in Temecula and visit Temecula, then we have to watch the dollars, and when we have an opportunity to get a corporate sponsor to come in and help us defray some of the cost to put on something as big as the Rod Run, which benefits all the businesses up and down Front Street, then we talk about we're a business-friendly community, we're a business-friendly city hall. When they say things like that to me, my ears perk up and I want to listen to what they have to say. And I think we can carve out at least an exception in this one case and then see where we land after that. We don't have to re-debate the entire corporate policy. We can save that for another day and give staff the ability to go out and recruit that one sponsorship.
Mr. Roberts?
The Balloon and Wine Festival was mentioned, and I just wanted to bring up the fact that that is not a Temecula event, that is a county event. We do fund it, some of it, as do a lot of others too, so that probably should be a different talk because it's not ours. We can't make decisions. So that's all. I just want to get that on the record.
I need some clarification, and you know, newspapers are always right, so you need to believe everything you read in the newspaper. But the newspaper, to me, seemed to indicate that this sponsor said if they can't choose where their money is going, like what nonprofit their money was going to, and then they didn't want it, they weren't going to support.
So, Madam Mayor, it's your meeting. You'll have to ask staff to clarify that.
Yeah, was that, I thought it involved that they didn't have a choice about the nonprofit, and then they said, so if it can't all, having that be the case, if it couldn't all go to the Rod Run, then they weren't going to participate.
The gist of what we shared during the staff meeting is that this particular sponsor felt that if they that all of their contributions, all of their donations or sponsorships should go to this event, to the Rod Run event. And then as a continuation of that, it was if they did not have at their discretion to dictate where the dollars were going, then they did not want to participate.
Oh, so it was if, you know, it should go to the Rod Run, and if I can't decide that it all goes to the Rod Run, then?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Mr.
Well, I'm
Roberts,
going to go
you
ahead and
shouldn't be
call
in
for the
queue.
question. We have an alternate motion on the field, on the table. Mr. Washington, could you reiterate that?
I would support staff's recommendation with one caveat that we allow staff to go out and recruit that one sponsorship for the Rod Run without modifying the corporate sponsorship agreement en masse. We can discuss that at a later date.
And I'll second that.
All right, so, then we had the motion in the second already, right? Yes, so cast your votes. And it passes 3-2. Thank you, gentlemen.
Madam Mayor,
Sir?
with respect to that action, I was consulting with the city attorney, and I think we're both of the opinion that the motion that was made on the table, or was made with respect to the policy, wasn't part of the agenda per se, so there may be a need for us to bring back the corporate sponsorship policy, exempt out the signature event as was made on the motion. Is that correct?
Okay, so what do we need to do right now?
So my motion was not to exempt out the entire event, but to try to secure that one sponsorship.
But it's contradictory to the corporate sponsorship policy, correct?
Right. So the carve out in the corporate sponsorship would be only for that one sponsor in that one event, if that's.
I still believe the cleanest way is probably to bring back the policy for consideration unless city attorney disagrees.
I think we're well within our bounds to make a decision about a particular event and exempt them from the corporate sponsorship program if the council votes to do so. I mean, that's we're well within our bounds to do that. I don't think we have to bring the whole corporate sponsorship program, go over it, and then say we exempt this one entity from it. I personally don't think that's the case.
That's just my recommendation.
I understand, and I would just disagree with that. We can, I mean, it came up as part of the agenda item. It certainly can be done.
So Candace, upon further research, if you get corroborating support from, say, Peter, and we need to bring it back, can the decision as voted tonight stand until you have time to further analyze?
Yes, I believe so. So we can kind of take a belt and suspenders action in bringing it back. I think the tone of the discussion appears to kind of call into question concerns about the policy as a whole and whether you want to revisit this issue, which is why we had this sidebar conversation about, is this really just the rod run, or is it actually other potential events involving the city and corporate sponsors? And so that's why the suggestion was made. But certainly we can go forward with this, take a second look, and like I said, kind of make a belt and suspenders action of bringing it back to the council.
Okay.
And that would also negate this decision. I mean, we'd have to go back and revisit this motion too, would we not?
Well, not the component to implement, for staff to implement the rod run. I think that certainly just stands, correct.
Okay. Jeff?
Just if it does come back, would we make sure that, while I don't think it's prudent to reveal the particular sponsor who raised the issue, but I think it is prudent for us to know what the amount in question was. So that should be part of the staff report, please.
All right. So we will wait and take direction from the city attorney and bring back for the next meeting, if necessary.
If needed.
If necessary. All right, item number 11, exclusive negotiation agreement for the potential disposition of city-owned property located at the northwest corner of Diaz Road and Dendy Parkway, APN 909-370-002.
Madam Mayor, members of the council.
Are you
My
sure
turn?
now? You
I
sure?
think it's my turn now.
You sure?
Okay, good.
You sure?
Sorry, Kevin. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Great. So before the council tonight is the exclusive negotiating agreement between the city of Temecula and Wild Rivers Temecula LLC. The site under consideration is known as the Diaz property. It's located at the northwest corner of Diaz Road and Dendy Parkway. It was purchased in 1994 by the former redevelopment agency. It's currently undeveloped, but it is substantially graded. You can see here on this proximity map, it is in the upper northwest corner of the city, right on the border with Marietta. This is the site as it is today. It's graded but undeveloped. The city received a letter in May 22nd, 2014, from Wild Rivers Temecula LLC. In that letter, they indicated that they were interested in purchasing the property for the ultimate development of a water park. In response, and at council's direction, staff prepared an exclusive negotiating agreement to define the terms of the negotiating period. The ENA itself is fairly simple. It defines the term of negotiation as 1 month with the potential for 1 month extension via administrative extension. If a purchase price is determined during the negotiating period, staff will return with a purchase and sale agreement that defines the nature of the transaction. With that, staff is recommending the City Council approve the exclusive negotiating agreement between the City of Temecula and Wild Rivers Temecula LLC.
Thank you, Luke. Mr. Roberts, are you still in the queue, or are you in the queue again? No. Okay. Any questions? I mean, you're not still talking, Mr. Washington, for 12 minutes and 51 seconds. Mr. Nagar.
I have questions, but
All
not
right.
for staff, but for the applicant, which is in the audience.
Okay.
Okay, so at your discretion.
Right, no questions for staff? No? Okay. So you have one for the applicant. So applicant, could you come up, please?
Yeah.
Gentlemen? How are you?
I'm well.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Mr. Nagar.
Mike, thanks for being here today. One thing everybody keeps asking, and I just wanted to bring it up, is the council wants a water park. They want to be assured that the site would be developed as a water park. And in the past, financing was a problem. because of the Great Recession of 2008. It's hard to get construction loans. Tell the council and the public, where do you stand on financing, and where does it go from here?
Well, we're actually in pretty good position. Wild Rivers and the managing member of Wild Rivers entered into an LOI with a equity funding partner that's going to fund not just this park but other parks around the country as well. They're very capable, and they've already committed and have the money set aside to do all the pre-construction. So that leaves us at the senior debt portion. The senior debt, we've approached the same people that committed on the senior debt or gave us a term sheet on the debt for the Irvine property, which didn't actually come about. They're going to give us a term sheet. We're anticipating that term sheet to come in either Thursday or Friday for the rest of it. So we're pretty much locked and loaded and ready to go. The biggest issue for us is going to be the soil composition and what has to be done, the remediation of the soil as far as the timing of the project. But we're comfortable with every other aspect of it.
And quickly, my last question, give us the timing.
Well, we would start, assuming that the exclusive negotiating agreement was approved tonight. We've already begun the process of getting an appraisal on the land ourselves, and go through the negotiating process. During that process, we would be getting a feasibility study done, which would be the only thing that the lender would need to substantiate the feasibility study that was done in 2006 and our internal numbers. Then we'd start working on, the first thing would be to do the surcharge that's necessary on the land. We're all familiar with that. And depending upon how that land compacts, if that land compacts within 30 days, then we're going to keep moving. The issue is going to be if the soils engineers, when the soils engineers tell us that land is prepared for us to build.
And your construction timeline?
Ideally, our construction timeline would be about 8 months, but we might be able to condense it. We're talking to contractors who tell us that they can do this and have done it at other parks, and I have experience with these guys that might be able to do it in 5 or 6 months. Okay. So it's gonna be tight if the soils engineers are thinking, maybe 90 days on the surcharge, which when you include mobilization, everything else would be about 120 days. It's gonna be close for 2015. Which is why we've already begun the process of talking to all the consultants. So they've got kind of refreshed all their data, go back through the design process, have the feasibility started, already do the appraisal. So we're kind of working concurrently, trying to get this whole thing done. But most of what is the key to this is how is the dirt going to cooperate.
Got it. Thank you.
If it compacts the way we hope that it will, then we can get it done. If not, it may take a little bit longer.
We surcharged once. Is that common to have to do it again?
Well, we surcharge half the site.
Oh, well, that's true.
So it's the other side, the other half that has to be done, and then you have to worry about, well, is the site that was done a long time ago isn't going to rebound as much as the new site, and so it's beyond the scope of my expertise, Mayor, but that's what the engineers are working on.
Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, just going back to the funding element. First of all, I'm glad you're back here again. I mean, we do want to see this built. You mentioned your financial partner has entered into an LOI or submitted an LOI to you. Is that binding or non-binding?
It's non-binding, but he's right here if you'd like to talk to him.
Yeah, I would. You want to come up? We just want to avoid a repeat. It wasn't your fault. We know what the economy did, so not pointing any fingers, but we want to make sure we're clear there. What does it take to go from a non-binding LOI to a binding agreement?
I would say most letter of intents are non-binding, but I think at this point, as we sit here today, as we sit in front of council and staff, I would say we're pretty much committed with regards to entering into an exclusive negotiating with agreement with the city, and we're going to start spending dollars here, hopefully first thing tomorrow.
Live and on television in front of 106,000 people.
Exactly. So we understand that. So there's a binding commitment, but it's more than just a binding commitment. It's a kind of a master relationship that we're entering into with Wild Rivers to hopefully develop not just Temecula, but several other locations throughout the country.
And that's great, and I appreciate that, and that's good enough. But at some point, I assume there'll be an agreement, that the LOI is reduced to an agreement. Do you have any problem when that happens, supplying the city with that agreement?
Not a problem
Okay,
at all.
then I'm good with that. That's great.
Not a problem at all. Because if I could add one more thing, when we enter into a purchase and sale, that entity will be Wild Rivers in our partnership entering into that purchase and sale agreement with the city of Temecula.
Even better.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
If there's no speaker, I don't know if there's any speakers.
No comments.
Speakers.
Then I move the item.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second?
And we'll need to take a voice vote, because I can't access this item.
Wait, the city clerk's in the queue to speak.
Okay. Clerk Ron is still there. Clerk is still there. Okay, so we got to take a voice vote, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. So that's unanimous. Thank you, and we wish you all the luck in the world. Okay, any reports tonight? City Manager?
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to make a brief introduction, if I could invite her up to the podium real quick. Our new city clerk is here, Randy Joel, recently relocated from the city of Lodi. And although she hasn't officially started work, she did show up to City Hall today, and I wanted to introduce her to you and the community. And tomorrow is her first day as our new city clerk.
So welcome, and you've been
Randy,
in the
welcome.
back observing all of this tonight.
I have, Madam Mayor.
And you still want to come see us?
Didn't know I was going to invite her up here.
I did not know that.
So
Get used to it.
Well, just thank you. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity and thank the city manager for bringing me on. And I'm just looking forward to serving the city council and the city manager and working with staff and serving this community. So thank you.
Well, we are so excited to have you join us. We've heard nothing but great things about you. And so if, none of this scared you or anything, then we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Super. Thank you.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, one other thing, in the absence of a city clerk, I'd be remiss if I did not recognize Gwen Flores in the acting capacity.
Gwen,
I think she deserves
did
a round of
great
applause.
job. So Gwen will help you. She'll have your, she'll have the secret handshake, the city song ready to go, your secret decoder ring, and all of those things ready for you first thing in the morning. All right. Mr. City Manager, that was it for you. City Attorney's report?
Yes, there were 3 items on tonight's closed session agenda. Direction was given and no reportable action was taken.
All right, thank you. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
And we stand adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.